Hi everyone, Jessica here from Paper Ink Stamp and welcome back to another card making video. So in today's video we're going to be making a slimline Christmas card and we're going to be using just a couple of different products. So unfortunately I'm not sure if these products are available. These have actually come from my nan's stash, so I'm just using a couple of products here that she had, and again, so I don't know if they're available anymore, so apologies if they're not. So I started off with just some white ink me cardstock. This is the 300 GSM that I cut previously, and this is going to be a slimline card. So I've cut this to 8.5 inch by 7 inch, and then I will be scoring just down the middle at 3.5, and that will give us our card base. And I've picked up this really beautiful 12 by 12 inch patterned paper, again from his stash, and I just thought this was a kind of a different kind of Christmas paper, and I thought it would just look perfect for our background. So the size I've cut this down to, this is going to be 8.25 by 3.25 inch, and this is then going to give us a 1/4 of an inch border from our white card base again to our backing paper. And then I'm going to cut just another piece of cardstock again, which is going to be basically the front panel to our card, and I'm going to cut that to 8 inch by 3 inch. So again, just coming down in those 1/4 of an inch increments, and again, that's just going to give us that really lovely border. So once we've cut everything down, then we can go ahead and get started with the decoration on our card. So for one of the main features of our card today, we're going to be using a die set from Creative Expression. So this is a festive collection, and this is the Sentimental Baubles. So again, my apologies if this is no longer available to buy. This isn't something that I've just purchased. Like I said, this has come from my nan's stash, but I just thought the really ornate baubles were absolutely beautiful, and I thought they would make a perfect Christmas card. So you can see you've got two different sized baubles within this die set. So we've got an outer die, and then we've got a die that's going to cut all of that really beautiful sort of pattern into our baubles. So it's absolutely gorgeous. And we're going to be creating two of these. They're going to go on the front of their card. And what I really loved is these baubles are sort of bigger than what our front card panel is going to be. Don't forget that was 3 inches high. So I wanted to, well, I will be cutting sort of the top and the bottom off the bigger piece. And I just think it's really nice having sort of oversized images on the cards and then sort of cutting it down. I just quite like the way that looks. So I didn't actually look at these dies sort of more closely. So these inside dies, they don't have a cutting edge around it. So it actually cuts into the paper, and that sort of design stays within the paper. So it's designed for you then to cut this base out, like I'm doing here with the green, and then you sort of re-put that through your die cutting machine with then the additional die, and that will give you the pattern. Obviously, I didn't sort of look closely enough at that, so I was thinking, well, I have the green as the base, and I'll have this red, beautiful pattern over the top of it, but of course then it doesn't work that way. So what I end up doing here is obviously just completely discard of what I'm going to die cut from this red, but then I do go ahead and then put this panel of green back through the die cutting machine how it should be. Then the second time, where it will then put all of that really beautiful detail into our green base. I will then re-die cut the base panel from the red, and that is then going to go behind it, so we will have the green detail on top of the red. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. But you can see here, so I've just put this through the die cutting machine for the second time. It's going to put all of that really beautiful detail in. Now, one thing I wanted to show you, something that I've recently purchased, is one of these kind of bristle die cutting brushes, and this is perfect if you do a lot of die cutting, and especially a lot of intricate die cutting. I have a pokey tool, and beforehand I was just having to kind of poke each piece out individually. But like I said, if you do a lot of die cutting, this sort of bristle brush is perfect because you can get so much out. You only then have to kind of poke out with your pokey tool just those really sort of stubborn pieces that won't come out. So yeah, definitely sort of one of those sort of must-have tools. I think I picked this one up. This is an X-Cut. I think I purchased it from the range. Came with like a foam mat as well, and I believe it was only sort of around about £10. So I think it was definitely worth, like I said, if you're doing a lot of die cutting. So like I said before, I then recut the base piece out of the red. So like I said, then we've got our green decorative piece is going to sit on top of our red. And I just think this looks really beautiful, really festive. Again, very ornate. And like I said, it's much bigger than what our base panel is going to be. But I really want to cut that down to kind of give it that really oversized look. So the second one I'm going to create, I'm still going to use that red, but I'm actually going to use the red as my top with the sort of pattern in it, and then I'm going to put some gold behind it just to kind of bring in that really lovely sort of Christmas gold, and it's going to go perfectly with our with our embossing that we are going to do for our sentiment. So you can see just how beautiful that looks with that gold piece behind. It just makes it look a lot more elegant, sort of adding that mirror card to it. And now all we're going to do is just adhere our sort of decorative piece to our backing piece. So I've just popped some regular tacky glue onto an acrylic block, and this is just going to help get glue sort of all across the back and stick it down nicely. Again, you can use any adhesive that you want. I then just put this under something heavy after I had stuck it down and got it in place, just to make sure that everything was sort of stuck down. I didn't have any pieces kind of curl up or anything like that. And then I just think the way that they looked in the end was just really, really great. So you can see both of them here. Like I said, just going to put this under something heavy just to make sure that they're adhered really well. So now we can take a look at the sentiment that we're going to be using, but we are going to create a background before we put our sentiment on. So again, this is just another stamp that I found in my nan's stash. This is really big, beautiful joy sentiment with those kind of flourishes underneath, and it came on this sort of really strange acrylic block that had sort of a handle. It kind of stood up a little bit. I believe this was called Clarity Stamp, something like that. It's not a company that I'd heard of before, but again, some really beautiful stamps and sentiments that I found. So that's a sentiment we're going to be using, but first we're going to create a background because I didn't want it to just be plain white. So I've got here 2 pots of Ranger Perfect Pearls. This is like a pigment powder. So we've got Festive Green and Forever Red. And all I'm doing is just picking up some of the powder just on the brush, and I'm just going to add some water to it, and it's going to create a really sort of beautiful shimmery it's almost like a paint, I suppose. I have tried painting with these and it did kind of work quite well, but what I'm going to be doing is creating just some background splatter. So you can see that I'm watering it down quite a bit, and all I'm going to do is kind of load my brush up with it. I'm going to take it to my card panel, and then I'm just going to kind of tap the brush just to then have those sort of splatters on our background. Because this has got like a mica pigment in it, it's got a really beautiful sort of shimmer in it, and it's just going to give us a really beautiful sort of festive background, especially using these kinds of colours. And it doesn't look kind of too perfect, like I said, because we are just kind of going with those paint splatters. The one thing I would recommend is to probably not do this kind of technique where I'm doing it now. You can see I've still got all my products around. I don't have a glass mat underneath, it's just a regular sort of self-healing cutting mat. It does make a bit of a mess. If you do have something like maybe a cardboard box that you could put your cardstock into and sort of splatter in that, where then it's going to be kind of contained within the box, I would probably recommend doing that more, because like I said, you don't want to kind of get it on your clothes, don't want to get it on, like I said, any projects or products that you've got around you, just in case you can't get them off. So yeah, definitely sort of protect your area if you're going to do this, because when you do this sort of paint splatter, it does kind of tend to get just around the sort of desk a little bit more than what you would like it to. So it did take me sort of a couple of minutes to then go back and kind of tidy everything up, but I just used a wet wipe, especially on this sort of mixed media mat that I've got. It did sort of wipe off fine, but like I said, I just used like a baby wipe. But you can see how easy this background sort of comes together. You know, it's not anything too distracting from, you know, the patterned paper that we've got or all of the decoration we're going to be popping onto this card. So it just makes for a super, super easy and sort of interesting background. So now we've got our background finished. I did use a heat gun just to dry this off, because I am going to do some heat embossing for our sentiment. So I've just taken my anti-static powder tool, and I'm just really generously rubbing over my background, because I don't want the gold embossing powder to stick to any sort of other areas within my background. background. And I have just popped a little clip. I've seen a lot of other crafters do this as well, just using one of these clips to sort of hold the anti-static powder tool bag, because obviously it does kind of get everywhere a little bit. It just makes it easier to kind of use. But like I said, you can see that I'm really kind of making sure that we don't have any sort of static area left on this background for that embossing powder to stick to. So I'm just taking my stamp here, and I'm just using this Versamark ink pad. So normally I've got the emboss sort of clear ink pad, but I just wanted to give this one a try, and I did think it was quite juicy as well, so whether it was might have been newer, but yeah, I did really like it, so I might consider when I need to get a new embossing clear ink pad that I might go for a Versamark this time. But I'm just stamping this now to the right hand side, and so normally when I'm doing my heat embossing, I would use my stamping platform, but because this is already mounted onto this clear block, I'm not 100% sure whether it's designed to come off it, but I did kind of make sure that I had enough of the clear embossing clear ink on my stamp, and I made sure that I pressed down really sort of evenly all over that stamp, and I think the impression I got was pretty good. Now I'm doing is just using some Paper Mania. This is just a gold embossing powder, and again it worked really well, so the impression I got was really great. There are just some areas where I get just a little bit of embossing powder, but I'm just going to take a brush, and you can see here I'm just really carefully going around my sentiment just to make sure I don't knock any of that embossing powder off that I actually want. And then all we're going to do is just to heat set this, so just let your heat gun heat up a little bit before you go in, just so it doesn't sort of blow any of that embossing powder off your image. And I really love how this looks. I think this is a really lovely, big, bold sentiment. And I just think it's something different. It's not the kind of sentiment that I've seen before. And I really just love those extra little flourish details that it has on it. So you can see here that I actually made 3 baubles, but when it came to gluing down the gold onto the green, the glue sort of went everywhere. I think there was just a little bit too much glue on it, and I thought it looked messy, so I didn't end up using this one. But any sort of additional items like this that you create that you don't use on the front of your card, it's always really nice to then decorate the inside of your card with this. So, if you have an extra image or whatever the case may be, a sentiment, decorate the inside of your cards. So you can see all I've done is just use some glue just to glue down our first bauble into the background, and then I'm going to use some foam tape for our smaller bauble, just so we've got a little bit of dimension on our card. So this is just tape running a little bit low on just sort of the regular foam square. So I've just taken this roll and I'm just going to add sort of bits and pieces onto this. And this, like I said, is just going to add some dimension. We are going to pop this panel onto our patterned backing paper, but we're going to pop this onto some foam roll as well. And again, that's just going to add that extra bit of interest and dimension to our card. The other thing that I've done before I stuck this panel down is I just cut off the extra pieces from our bigger bauble. So I've just trimmed that down. Like I said, I really love just using that oversized image on a card, that you think, well, actually doesn't fit on there. I just think it just sort of adds a little bit of sort of different interest to our cards. So now we've got that nice sort of raised up from our backing paper, so you can just see a hint of that backing paper, and it's just again going to add in just a different kind of pattern onto then our splattered background, and then with our really beautiful Christmas imagery. And then I've just stuck that down with some glue. So that is our card almost finished. The only thing I'm going to do is just add a little bit of bling to this. I just thought it needed something a little bit extra, so I do add some gold gemstones. So I add them to all 4 corners, and I did start by putting them in that big sort of green area of the big bauble, because I thought it looked a little bit empty. So I was planning to kind of fill that, and then I put a few in and decided I didn't really like how it looked. So I just stuck to putting them into the corners, because it just finishes off those sort of corners quite nicely where they're just a little bit sort of blank. But then for the inside, so you can see I've stuck 3 in there, but like I said, I didn't like the way that it was looking. So I actually took one of the extra dies that was in the sentiment, and this is Peace, and this kind of just embosses into that panel. And I cut this from that same red card, and I just think it looks really great. It finished that piece off really, really nicely. So you can see our card all finished here, and I just think all the elements work so well together. It's just something a little bit different, and of course using that slimline design that is super popular at the moment. So again, apologies if you can't purchase these products anymore. I will take a look and see if I can find any of them, and I will pop links in the description box down below if I do. But like I said, I really just wanted to use these products. Like I said, they belonged to my nan. I really just wanted to have a go at sort of, you know, putting some pieces together, and I really, really love the results that we got today. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a go at making some more slimline cards, and of course making some Christmas cards. If you like this card, please give this video a thumbs up and leave me a comment down below. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already, then please do so you don't miss out on any future videos. So thanks very much for watching, and happy crafting.